Well, welcome along to this next instalment of Landlord Digital Lives. This is our themed content powered by our friends and partners at Landlord, which is running throughout the month of January. And the whole purpose of this content campaign is to encourage landlords to adopt digital tools and a digital lifestyle. And at Property Tribes, we have a whole ecosystem of products and services for landlords, and increasingly those are becoming digital products and tools as well. So I'm very delighted to welcome along Yazad from Lease, who sponsor our tenant referencing tribe. And Yazad, being a prop tech company yourself, we definitely wanted to have your views on this topic. And I think, first of all, if we cast our mind back to last year, when we had all the COVID lockdowns and the fallout from the COVID lockdowns, I'm sure you'd agree that landlords that were already, adopting a digital lifestyle probably found it a lot easier to continue running their businesses and survive than those that were kind of remaining in analog mode.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think it goes back to when we spoke last year about how we're bringing in something different in terms of the open banking referencing. Quite a lot of landlords, if they don't use an agent, they're doing everything themselves, and the only off chance that they'll do something will probably be just a minor credit check on that person, and they'll do everything themselves. Whereas the landlords that's using our service gets to actually do nearly every single thing, such as right to rent checks, affordability checks, and also then they get the full referencing and credit check with previous house history and everything like that. So yeah, definitely technology is the way forward in real estate.
Well, we also spoke last time about how the property sector has actually been quite resistant to change, and that in a strangely positive way, COVID-19 did kind of force or accelerate the velocity of change in that respect. And this month that we're doing is really to help landlords see the benefits of being a digital landlord. You've mentioned some of them in respect of your product, which is a tenant referencing platform. But what would you say overall are the main benefits for landlords to adopt digital tools?
There's a lot of benefits if you think about it. Everything right now can take numerous days to actually get sort of, for example, employer references. You have to contact the HR departments and things like that to find out if they're working, what their salary is, to confirm that all of these sort of things that usually took days can now take minutes. And it's all about saving time, but also, whilst you're saving time, you're also building that security, because the details that you get from technology nowadays, it actually goes directly into, for example, open banking goes directly into a tenant's bank account. So you actually know how they spend the money. Do they actually have the resources to actually afford that rent? And then, you can actually find it in a system, gold, bronze, silver, to actually see whether, they can actually afford that rent in addition to all the other checks that we carry out. So technology is definitely something that landlords need to rely a bit more on in order to get, safer tenants for their properties.
Well, across the whole spectrum, I think as well, you have just mentioned one, which is speed, which I think is a very powerful thing for landlords to have instant, results or data or whatever it might be at their fingertips. But I think, and also the cubic lease kind of proposition falls into this as well, risk mitigation, because you are able to access data with better data, whether that be tenant referencing or deal analysis or any other form of data that landlords use to make decisions. It can be a form of risk mitigation as well.
No, exactly. As you stated before as well, the sad truth is that with all these sorts of factors, something has to happen. So in 2008, we had the banking crisis, and then there was a reform in regards to how mortgages are dealt out. And then in terms of sales side, they created a procedure which was much more safer for people when they buy properties, that they can actually afford it. Now with COVID, it's actually putting a strain on the lettings industry because it's actually affecting their jobs as well, directly. So what we're starting to face is that people actually finding out that there needs to be a lot more stringent checks, and open banking allows you to check their current situation. Credit checks actually finds out their history and all that sort of factors, what they were doing previous years, previous months, and not actually the current situation they are in, which COVID may have put a strain on. That's where we can come in, because not only we're protecting landlords for before, but we're mitigating risks of them going to arrears before. During the tenancy that they're in.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's another perfect example of how powerful up-to-date intel is. I think one thing that I think will be a kind of a shift is, I think with all these digital tools, I think they're really going to assist those landlords that self-manage, and may encourage other landlords to self-manage. Now, I'm not going to say that lettings agents are never going to be needed, because I think they play a really important role. I have all our properties managed by lettings agents. That's my choice. But then there'll be a certain amount of landlords in the sector that do want to self-manage. And these digital tools can all kind of work together to help them, manage their business, maintain compliance, which is one of the big functions of a letting agent.
I think the statistics a few months ago was nearly 2/3 of landlords don't actually use estate agents. They actually, do most of the legwork all by themselves. And these are the landlords that may be putting themselves at risk if they don't adapt to the changing times. That's, evidently from COVID last year, with the lockdowns last year. We had 2 lockdowns last year, which could have affected, thousands, millions of people that are currently working in the UK. I totally agree with yourself.
Well, obviously, in terms of compliance with cubic lease, you've got the right to rent checks. And again, we're hearing about government updating legislation all the time, but a platform such as yours can instantly update to reflect any changes in the legislation. So again, it's helping with compliance, it's mitigating risk.
Exactly, 100%. Our systems will always be made sure that, we're trying to mitigate as much risk for landlords as possible. In terms of compliance and in terms of, whether they're studying the law and everything, we'll be making sure that happens. We recently had a tenant that didn't have a passport at all. We were able to remind that tenant that if he had a valid birth certificate and a driver's license, we can actually pass the right to rent check. So, we're definitely there to assist landlords where they may not be able to understand some of the factors. But yeah, it all comes part of our system, and everything's electronic and automatic. So, landlords don't actually have to do much at all. They just have to send out a link and everything's managed them for them.
Yeah. Well, again, that goes back to kind of efficiency, and, being very efficient with your time as well, because that's one thing that none of us have is more time. We will have the same 24 hours in the day, so to speak. I think
Exactly.
what would you say to landlords that are very wedded to their old ways of doing things, their kind of analog ways of doing things? What would you say to encourage them to start adopting digital technology around their landlord life?
I would definitely say, have a look at different things that are on the market. If you view our website, you can see the different things that we actually do, which can all be done within a matter of minutes. I would love for landlords to actually think about what they do when they're getting a tenant moving into their property. And when they actually write all those factors down, and then they see our software could do it for them in a matter of minutes, they can actually reflect in how much time they're actually saving, but also other risks they're actually mitigating. Because when they are providing bank statements, you're seeing between 3 months. We can see a reflection of 12 months. So, we're doing a lot more than what someone could possibly do if they were doing it all manual.
Absolutely. I guess what we can say to summarize really is that the digital landlord can work smarter than the analog landlord.
Exactly. No, 100%. I totally agree with that, Vanessa. It's just trying to see where, many people would think if I use technology, you're cutting corners, you're taking a shortcut, they feel like there's going to be risk associated with it. But actually, it's completely the opposite. It's actually a win-win. You're saving time and you're not cutting corners at all. It's a full system which covers the law really, and also protects yourself with potential arrears moving forwards.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Yazad, because I think you've actually hit on why the property sector has been so resistant to digital tools and digital change, because it is a people sector, without a shadow of a doubt. And nobody is suggesting that technology and these digital tools should take away the human element, the interaction between people. That's always going to be important. The landlord-tenant relationship is very, very important to maintain good relations and open and honest and respectful communication with your tenants. Nobody's saying that these tools are going to stop that kind of human aspect of landlordism. I think all that any of us are saying is that it's just going to blend with that and really enhance the whole process, the whole journey, not just for landlords but tenants as well, because they can interact in digital ways that they like to do. They can get instant answers to their questions. They can register repairs on a landlord software system if they've got an urgent repair. So the whole interaction between the technology and the landlord and tenant, that's what we're trying to promote, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah. We're not telling them to stop communicating with prospective tenants or even tenants during their tenancy. You can still have that conversation. You can still do viewings and accompany them, show them around the property. It's just basically getting them before the tenancy starts. So in terms of signing, the aspects in terms of signing them on, with finding out whether they can afford the property. It's just I think it's quite a tough aspect, because I've dealt with landlords where potentially they think, they will be cutting corners, which was why I thought that. And many feel they don't want to change because they feel in their eyes they've got a perfect system, which is where, every single time technology is going to push away how the old ways used to work. And it's just trying it out once, seeing whether it works for yourself. And, 9 out of 10, I may cheekily even add 10 out of 10 landlords actually use our platform. They're returning again, and they're actually using us because they actually feel that it's a much more quicker system, and we actually deal with every single thing.
I think once landlords get over that hump of actually diving into a digital platform and finding their way around and trying it out or inputting some information or whatever they need to do, once they do that, from what we're hearing across our landlord interviews, they never ever want to go back.
No, not at all. After they see how much time they save, and it's a less hassle. You don't have to be picking up your phone, calling through whether this prospective tenant actually works there, how much he's actually earning, is this bank statement even real? You can forge bank statements. You can make things up, whereas with open banking and these sort of factors, you can't make up money in your account. That's just not possible. And with our referencing credit checks, we actually give you a definitive answer whether this tenant's good for yourself or not.
Indeed. Well, as we discussed at the end of last year, and it definitely hasn't changed, robust tenant referencing is going to be absolutely vital going forwards, and Cubic Lease is a great way for landlords to do that online in minutes, and mitigate their risk. So we're really delighted to have you as part of the Property Tribes ecosystem.
Perfect. No, I love it too, Vanessa. I'm loving the partnership, and getting the chance to speak to landlords as well when they're having the conversations on your website as well. It's actually great to have. We're not trying. Well, we will be trying to sell ourselves as well, but it's also educating landlords in what they could do better to mitigate risks in terms of so they don't have to actually go to court. We're here to actually support landlords as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, I guess we can sign this off by saying that, when you're a landlord, if you operate in prevention mode and risk mitigation mode, it's a lot less hassle, heartache, less expense than if you don't, and then you're in cure mode and you're waiting for something to go wrong and then trying to fix it. So I think we can safely say, Yazad, that digital tools are going to put landlords firmly in prevention mode in 2021.
100%, yeah, without a doubt. I do feel technology is the right way forward. You won't see many people doing open banking, but if you look at all the other industries such as pay now, pay later schemes, they're already using open banking. Why can't it be used for the real estate and property sector to mitigate the risks that some tenants may go into arrears in the future?
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for joining me on this themed content, which we've been calling Landlord Digital Lives. We did an interview with Yazad towards the latter part of last year. I'll put that in the footer of this thread if you're interested to find out more about Cubic Lease. And as Yazad said, he is actually a member of the Property Tribes community, and he is on hand to answer any questions you may have. So thank you very much, Yazad. Lovely to speak to you as always. And hopefully everybody will continue to tune in to our Landlord Digital Lives themed content, which is running throughout January. If you're watching on YouTube, please could I ask you kindly to subscribe to Property Tribes TV, smash the notifications bell, and if you want to come and join our discussions or ask any questions of Yazad about Cubic Lease, tenant referencing, then please do jump across to propertytribes.com. But for now, it's goodbye from Yazad and myself.